各位，在外界讨论中国经济的增速换挡、消费偏低的传统叙事的时候，蔡崇信提出了一个更关键的判断：未来10年的增长不再取决于刺激，而是取决于技术底盘的完整性。从“15+5”规划到中国制造的结构趋势，他提出了并不是短期的热点，而是一条影响10年甚至20年的深层路线图。当全球都在谈论 AI 竞赛、模型能力，中国会不会落后的时候，他的回答反而回到2个朴素但具有决定性的词语，那就是制造业与技术的自立。蔡崇信的逻辑与外界理解中国的经济方式存在巨大的差异。外界喜欢用消费占比来判断经济的活力，而中国的增长却是来自生产型国家的长期复利。制造业今天贡献的不只是出口，更是国家财富积累的主要渠道。他给出的对比令人印象深刻，美国消费占 GDP 的 70%， 而中国不到 40%， 却能通过制造跨越从$800到$13,000的人均收入台阶。中国把未来压在继续做全球工厂，但不是服装与鞋子，而是新能源车、电池、光伏、算力设备等高技术制造。这一种转向使得产能过剩不再是贬义，而是国家能否突破产业边界的试金石。而真正让这一段话引起广泛关注的是，他对为什么中国在 AI 时代有结构优势的拆解。蔡崇信从未用情绪化语言，而是冷静列出几个外界极易忽视的变量：能源、成本、工程师数量、系统的效率，还有模型开源化。比如在能源端，中国过去15年以每年900亿美元投资电网，使得全国清洁能源装机容量达到美国的 2.6 倍，数据中心建设成本比美国低 60%， 电价便宜 40% 左右。这些数字不具有戏剧性，却构成了 AI 时代最昂贵的投入壁垒。模型不是在资本上竞争，而是在底盘上竞争。蔡崇信还强调一个往往被低估的结构事实： AI 的核心竞争力并不是模型的分数，而是能否把 AI 真正部署到产业上。美国把注意力集中在大模型的横屏上，而中国的优势却来自庞大的工程师体系与资源受限倒逼创新的。如果中国缺 GPU， 中国就优化系统效率；如果算力紧张，中国就把训练的流程做到极致节能。这一种饥饿优势，让大量工程师在软件、硬件、框架层做深度的优化，让 AI 从论文指标变成产业的工具。而当全球 AI 研究人员中有1半拥有中国高校的背景，语言本身就开始成为了新的生产力。越来越多的 AI 内部交流使用中文来进行，第一次让中文成为了技术的语言。让我们看一下视频。
Yeah, well, I think this is a very topical question because China just published the 15th five-year plan from the Central Committee. And I think some of you might have read the whole plan. I read a summary of it. But there's really two major takeaways from the five-year plan. Number one, China wants to continue to be a manufacturing powerhouse. I think the emphasis on the manufacturing economy, which is part of the real economy, is right there. That's what the leadership in China has clearly stated. This is where we want to be. You compare China to the rest of the world, consumption is actually a very small percentage of GDP, less than 40%, whereas in the United States, consumption is 70% of GDP, right? So China is actually making things. China is looking at GDP growth from production and, to an extent, exporting that production to the rest of the world because China is, I believe today and 10, 20 years from now, China will continue to be the manufacturing base to supply the rest of the world. So that's number one. Number two, the plan says we want to become technology self-reliant. I think this is very much both the foresight of the leadership as well as a reaction to what's going on with geopolitics, where the United States and some of the European countries are restricting critical technology from China. So China believes that we have to develop our own technology, which is China's already today very much well on the path of doing that. Now, going back to the first goal of maintaining a manufacturing base, if you look at the history of China and how China has become a wealthy country, I said $800 GDP per capita to 13,000 today, and we'll get to 30,000, in the next 10 years. The path of wealth creation has been in production and making things and supplying that to the rest of the world. And I actually think that this is, but there's a lot of criticism around that. They say, oh, China has excess capacity. They're exporting excess capacity to the rest of the world, as though that's a terrible thing. Well, if you think about it, did everybody criticize the German car industry for having excess capacity when Germans exported all of their cars? I mean, definitionally, excess capacity simply means you have production capacity that your domestic economy cannot absorb. Therefore, you resort to exports. But the use of the word excess seems to be like a dirty word, but it's not. It shouldn't be. Because how a country becomes wealthy is to make things and collect money from the rest of the world to make their own citizens wealthy. And I truly believe that continuing on this path of being a manufacturing center for the world, and now high-tech manufacturing, not making shoes or T-shirts, if we continue on that path, China will continue to grow its economy, and the citizens will continue to gain wealth and gain disposable income. And at some point, consumption will come. Today, we through the Alibaba platform, we see a lot of consumption. I give you a data point. There are something like 56 million. There's 56 million people on our platform that are spending more than $6,000 per year on Taobao. Okay, that's way more than the average disposable income of Chinese citizens. But we already have the scale. That many people that are spending that amount of money. So at some point, consumption will come. But I think the leadership in China understands the foundation to a healthy economy, growth, and wealth creation stands with having a strong manufacturing base. And today, it's high-tech manufacturing. So China is the best in the world when it comes to making electric vehicles, batteries, solar panels, and all those things that the rest of the world needs. So right now, I think the way Americans want to define who's winning the AI race is purely by looking at how good the large language model is. So one day it's OpenAI, the next day it's Anthropic, and then the Alibaba Quinn model becomes. By the way, the Alibaba Quinn model just won a 2-week contest of trading cryptocurrencies and stocks.
Wow.
They ask something like 10 different models, American models and Chinese models. The Alibaba model actually became the winner of the whole thing, and DeepSeek is second. By the way, huge amount of respect for DeepSeek, our neighbor in Hangzhou. They're doing incredible work. So, if you compare, we don't look at the AI race according to the American definition. We look at the entire stack of where China has the advantage. You start with energy. China has an advantage in electricity generation, and that's because 15 years ago, the government had the foresight to invest massively in energy transmission. When you generate electricity in the north, it has to be be transported to the south, right? And when you generate electricity, especially in clean energy, where there's sun, there's wind, there's water, not necessarily is where they need the electricity. So it has to be transmitted to somewhere else. So the state grid in China, there's two grids, right? There's a north and south. They make $90 billion of capex annually. The United States, 30 billion only. So the United States is massively underinvesting in electricity transmission. And, but China has been doing this for the last 15 years. And the result of that is China's installed base of electricity generation capacity is 2.6 times that of the United States. And even better, the net additions to capacity that China is putting in is 9 times that of the United States. So China's growth in electricity capacity is much, much faster than what's going on in the US. And most of the net add increase is in clean energy, solar power, okay? The end result of all of this is that China's electricity on a per kilowatt hour basis is about 40% cheaper than that of the United States. So China has an energy advantage in AI, because when you burn all these GPUs, train large language models and run inference, you're burning energy, lots of energy. The big difference between machines is machines eat a lot of energy, but the brain operates on very low energy. So that's the one thing. And then we look at how much it costs to build a data center. So it's 60% cheaper to build data centers in China. This is before you buy the chips, the cheap GPUs. And then you look at the model development. I actually think that the Chinese models are not very far behind the United States. And there's a reason for that. China has a lot of engineers, and it's the country that produces the most STEM students every year. And training, you would think that developing AI and training models is a very sort of high-level research type exercise. But a lot of the work is actually in the engineering. You have to work on the system to make the system very efficient in training the model with hundreds of billions of parameters, even 1 trillion parameters. If the system is not efficient, it will cost you a lot of GPU resources. So China being lacking in GPUs actually creates an advantage of starvation. When you don't have a lot of resources, you are forced to innovate at the systems level. And this is where China is strong, and lots of engineers talent. Globally, so very interesting thing, globally, almost half of the AI scientists and researchers have had a degree from a Chinese university.
Globally?
Globally. Whether they work in the US companies or they work in Chinese companies or anywhere globally. So what that means is you go to a company in the US, many of them are ethnic Chinese. And that's very, and I just recently saw a post, a social media post. Someone working at Meta, which is Facebook, is complaining that this is not a non-Chinese person. He's complaining that the AI team that he's working in, everybody is speaking Chinese and they're sharing ideas in Chinese he doesn't understand. So what that means is a lot of the idea sharing and exchange is happening in Chinese globally in AI. This is the first time Chinese language is an advantage. it had been a disadvantage for Chinese companies to expand overseas because when Alibaba goes to open up an office in Italy or in Japan or in the US, the people that we hire locally, they can't speak Chinese, so they speak English. So our people sitting in Hangzhou have to communicate to them in our second language, which is not ideal. Yeah. And I think that's a huge hindrance for Chinese companies to expand overseas. But now, knowing Chinese has become an advantage in the AI world. And that's very, very interesting, right? So anyway, I've just listed a number of these sort of advantages that China has, but the biggest advantage is that I believe the approach that Chinese companies are taking toward the large language models, which is open source, will accelerate the adoption of AI and will really make the proliferation, really realize the proliferation of AI that would benefit broader society. Okay, and the reason open source is so important is that it is cheap. It actually doesn't cost anything to use open source models. Alibaba has our version of, we publish many versions in the open source, and we're available in all the open source marketplaces in the United States, around the world. People can just take our model, download it, and put it on their infrastructure or put it on their notebook computer and start running AI at no cost. So the open source approach is helping the proliferation of AI, whereas in the United States, if you want to use AI, you got to pay OpenAI a lot of money to use AI. So I think that's ultimately the advantage of China, because the winner is not about who has the best model. The winner is about who could use it the best in their own industries, in their own lives. And that's going to be in China. Well, let's say, I'll give you an example. You take a Middle Eastern country, let's say people in Saudi Arabia. They say, well, we want to develop AI, and we want our AI to be sovereign to us, meaning that it's Saudi-developed AI. But of course, most countries in the world don't have the actual talent to develop their own sovereign AI. So if they're choosing between using OpenAI through an API or just taking the Alibaba open source model, just taking that and develop on top of it, I think the cost benefit is clearly in favor of open source. And there's also another reason, data privacy. If you are using OpenAI and doing further training on the model, you're feeding your data into an API. You have no idea, it's a black hole. You have no idea where that data is going. Whereas if you work with open source AI, you can better control data privacy, and you can set up your own private cloud to store your data. And so globally, as you know, both public, like governments, and also private enterprises look at which AI I should adopt, I think they will lean toward developing open source AI, or developing on top of open source AI, for cost reasons and for data privacy reasons. And so we don't make money from AI. That's the answer. But no, we remember we run a cloud computing business. So when you run models, you need to have cloud infrastructure. And it's a very sophisticated infrastructure. It's not something that any company can just hire a few engineers to build. You need both the expertise in that infrastructure of running AI and also the scale, because this is a scale game with, just like individually, we don't build our own hotels. You go rent a hotel, you go stay in a hotel. So because the hotel operators have skills. Same thing as the data center business, the cloud business. It's all about aggregating infrastructures, and you as you have many customers, you have that operating leverage to lower the unit cost of serving your customers. So through our cloud service, if people are running AI and they happen to want to use Alibaba Cloud, we have a whole suite of products from storage to data management to security to networking to containers, which is a term that I really don't understand anyway. I'll just say it. So all of these suite of products will help you run your AI more efficiently on our infrastructure, and that's how we monetize. From a skill set standpoint, I still think you should learn, number one, how to acquire knowledge, and number two, develop analytical framework for analyzing information, coming to your own conclusions, right? And a number of things that you could do to help you do that. There's no one lesson or one thing that help you with improving your analytical capabilities. For example, I always still tell people that they should learn some kind of computer code. It's like learning a foreign language. A foreign language is, you learn to communicate, let's say in Spanish with someone in Spain, French with someone in France. A computer language is you're communicating with a machine. You're telling the machine you're instructing the machine what to do. And there's a lot of logic behind, that language. How do you construct the right instruction to tell the machine to do the right thing? And that process itself is a thinking process. So I still advise kids to learn coding. Even though today with all of these vibe coding tools, you actually don't need to learn a computer code. You just use natural language to tell the tool how to write. The purpose is not to actually, operate a machine. The purpose is going through that thinking process. I come from a legal and finance background. In finance, what do people use? Spreadsheets. I tell my kids, you should learn how to work a spreadsheet, because constructing a formula in a spreadsheet and make it work, you just type in one number and it just, the number just sort of calculates itself, the formula calculates, and then you have the results. It's a beautiful thing. And if you know how to work a really good spreadsheet, that's a thing, you're going through that thinking process. So skill set wise, I think learn how to acquire knowledge, learn how to analyze and think. And also an important skill is to ask the right questions. That's one thing. The other is sort of subject matter. I have been telling kids, young people, two subject matters that they should study. One is data science. It's a fancy term for statistics. It used to be called statistics. Now people call it data science. Because in the future, we're going to see data explosion. The more digitized the world, the more data you will acquire, or the company will acquire. And understanding how to manage that and analyze data is very important. Now, having done the data side, you wanted to touch upon the human side of things. So study of psychology is important. Psychology and biology helps you understand how the human brain works. I still think, as I said, it is still the most efficient, energy-efficient machine there is. And understanding how the brain works is quite important. A third thing is, it just came up, I think a lot of kids today are not learning computer science, but instead they're learning material science. In the future, the world is, is being dominated by bits, but in the future, what makes the bits move faster is going to be atoms. Understanding how the atoms work is going to be quite important. People make semiconductors. There's going to be a lot of innovation in the semiconductor space. So I think material science will be an interesting thing to learn.